Have you ever stumbled upon a story online that felt a little too real? A story that blurred the line between fiction and a terrifying warning. Today, we're delving into one of the internet's first and most enduring legends. A tale that began in 2001 and still has people wondering if it actually happened. This is the story of Ted the Caver. It all started with a blog, not a polished, professional one, but a simple, text-based journal that documented a caving adventure. The author, a man who called himself Ted, and his friend, identified only as B, were amateur explorers. One day, while hiking on some private land, they stumbled upon something intriguing. A small, almost insignificant hole in the ground. It was barely big enough for a person to stick their head in, but what caught their attention was the wind. A steady, constant breeze was flowing out of this tiny opening. It was unusual, unnatural even. It was, as Ted described it, like the cave was alive, like it was breathing. This peculiar phenomenon was too fascinating to ignore, driven by a mix of curiosity and an adventurous spirit. Ted and B decided they had to see what was inside. The problem was the entrance. It was far too small, so they hatched a plan. They would widen it. They brought tools, hammers, chisels, drills, and began the laborious process of chipping away at the rock. In his first blog entry, Ted detailed their slow progress. The rock was tougher than they'd anticipated, and the work was grueling. But with every chip of stone they removed, that mysterious wind continued to blow, cold and persistent, calling to them from the darkness within. It was a promise of something deep and undiscovered, and it was enough to keep them going. After several trips and hours of hard labor, they finally made the opening just large enough to squeeze through. Ted, being the primary narrator of this adventure, volunteered to go first. Armed with a flashlight and a rope, he pushed himself through the tight passage. The moment he was inside, the atmosphere changed. The passage plunged steeply downwards into absolute blackness. His flashlight beam cut through the dark, revealing walls of damp, ancient rock. And the air smelled ancient, musty, like a place that hadn't been disturbed for thousands of years. The feeling of isolation was immediate and profound. He was the first human to enter this space in a very, very long time. He called for B to follow, and together they ventured deeper. The narrow passage soon opened into a larger chamber, giving them room to stand and look around. It was in this first chamber that they found the next strange clue. On one of the walls, they discovered a series of markings. They weren't random scratches from animals or the natural patterns of erosion. These were deliberate, almost like a form of writing, but they were so old and worn that they were completely illegible. Who or what had carved them, and why? Before they could ponder it for too long, they noticed the wind again. It was much stronger here, flowing from another dark passage that led even deeper into the earth. The cave wasn't just a single chamber. It was a system, and it was pulling them further in. This is where the story takes a darker turn. Shortly after that trip, Ted started having nightmares. He wrote about them in his blog, describing them with a chilling consistency. In every dream, he was back in the cave. But he wasn't alone. He couldn't see what it was, but he could feel it, a presence in the suffocating darkness, watching him, waiting. The dreams always left him with an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling that he was being beckoned to go deeper, towards something that should not be disturbed. Despite the fear, the obsession with the cave only grew stronger. The mystery was a hook that he couldn't shake, ignoring the warning signs from his own subconscious. Ted convinced B to go back. They pushed further into the cave system, following the source of the wind. The passages twisted and turned, seeming to stretch on for miles. The journey was physically demanding and mentally taxing. And then they found it. Something that defied all geological explanation. The natural, jagged cave tunnel abruptly ended, opening into a new passage that was perfectly round. It was a smooth, machine-like tunnel, descending downwards at a steep, almost impossible angle. Ted wrote that no natural formation could have created this. It looked man-made, but the smoothness was almost organic, as if something had bored its way through the solid rock. The wind coming from this new tunnel had changed. It was no longer cold. It was warm, and it carried a sound of faint, rhythmic, pulsing sound. It was almost like a heartbeat, or, more disturbingly, like the slow, deep breathing of something enormous. At this point, B had had enough. The nightmares had started for him, too. He told Ted he would wake up in the middle of the night, in his own bed miles away, and he could hear that rhythmic sound from the cave. The dread was becoming unbearable. He wanted to seal the cave and never speak of it again, but Ted was beyond reason. He described his feelings as a compulsion. He couldn't stop. He had to know what was at the bottom of that tunnel. He had to know what was making that sound. His obsession had completely overshadowed his fear. Against B's better judgment, they made one final descent. They entered the perfectly round tunnel, their boots struggling for purchase on its unnervingly smooth surface. The air grew warmer with every step, and the rhythmic breathing sound grew louder, vibrating through the rock and into their bones. Their flashlight beams pierced the darkness ahead, revealing that the tunnel was opening into a massive, cavernous chamber. They stood at the edge, peering into the abyss, and in the center of that chamber, illuminated by their trembling lights, they saw something that made their blood run cold and their minds recoil in pure terror. Ted's final blog entry is where the legend solidifies. It wasn't a calm, detailed account like the others. It was frantic, panicked, and barely coherent. The text was rushed, full of typos. He wrote, "We ran. We sealed the entrance. We're not going back." He ended with a desperate, capitalized plea to anyone who might read his journal and figure out the cave's location. "Do not enter. There are things underground that should stay buried." And then, silence. The blog was never updated again. Ted's account went dormant. People who had been following the story tried to contact him, but all attempts failed. He and B had vanished from the internet. The exact location of the cave, which he had been careful to keep vague, was never revealed. So, what happened to Ted the Caver? For over 20 years, people have debated that question. The original blog was filled with detailed diagrams of the cave, specific dates, and a raw, personal tone that felt incredibly authentic. It didn't read like a story. It read like a real journal. Skeptics argue that Ted and B simply got scared, abandoned their blog, and moved on with their lives, amused by the legend they had created. But others believe the final entry was the literal truth. They believe Ted and B went back one last time, unable to resist the pull of the mystery, and finally discovered what was making that terrible, rhythmic sound. Whatever they found in that darkness, it was enough to make them seal the cave forever and disappear. The story doesn't quite end there. In the years since, other cavers and urban explorers from around the world have claimed to find similar phenomena impossibly smooth, round tunnels, deep underground. The reports are eerily consistent. An overwhelming feeling of dread, the distinct sensation of being watched by an unseen presence, and sometimes, if they listen closely, a faint, rhythmic sound coming from the deep. Was Ted the Caver a brilliant piece of fiction that inspired copycats? Or was it a genuine warning from someone who ventured too far into the unknown? To this day, no one knows for sure. It remains a chilling reminder that maybe, just maybe, some mysteries are better left unsolved, and some doors are better left unopened. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of the internet's greatest mysteries. What do you think happened to Ted? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the strange and unexplained, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content. Stay curious and stay safe.